Uh, Also, I've got this little really nice little C Farmall in here. This is not mine. A friend of mine brought this over last week. It's a really nice little tractor, but the transmission is a little bit noisy in third and fourth gear. So probably later this week I'm going to pull the top off the transmission, take a look in there, and see if I can determine what's going on with that. So I'll probably pull the skid steer out tomorrow, clean out that bay, and put the C over there where I can have it out of my way to work on. Well, I've started working on the C a little bit. I've got the transmission cover bolts loose. I'm just about ready to pull it off. I've got the seat off. Unfortunately, the studs and nuts that hold the seat on, the nuts were rusted to the point to where there was no way to grab them with anything. They were about halfway rusted off, and I really couldn't get at them with anything, so any kind of a tool to try and work them. So unfortunately, I ended up slipping the torch in there and clipping them off. I've got them soaking in PB Blaster right now, hoping that after they soak for a while, I can grab them with the vice grips and work them loose and get these studs out of here. That would make my life a little easier, but worst case scenario, if they won't move, I'll have to grind them off flush and drill them out. Not the worst thing in the world, but just a little more time consuming. I've got the stand here for the steering wheel and all the controls loosened up, and in order to get the top off, I have to take this off and pull it back. Unfortunately, I don't know if you can see in there, but the bottom part of the of this stand is rusted pretty badly. I think when I go to reassemble this, I'm going to have to pull this off and weld a new piece of sheet metal in the bottom of this thing. Unfortunately, the heads of the bolts on this thing were rusted as well. So this one I ended up knocking off with the air chisel, and this one the rusted out bottom of this assembly ended up kind of staying with some of that. So again, I got it soaking with PB Blaster, so hopefully I'll be able to grab those and get them out. Again, if not, worst case scenario, I drill them out and retap them, but that's okay. I'll get my shop hoist here, and we'll see what's going on in the transmission of this thing. I've got the transmission cover off of the C, and have had a little time to look it over. One thing that's obvious to me is this tractor, I believe, has sat for a long time at one point because it shows a lot of rusting and pitting. It's not rusty right now, but I can see where it was. It rusted up. There's a lot of rusty marks and pitting on the ring gear there and on some of the other gears. But as far as why this thing was noisy, I'll point out what I found. If you look down there in the bottom, I'll point it out here with an old welding rod. If you look way down there, you'll see a little piece of kind of wavy metal moving around as I spin this. There it goes. Kind of going back and forth and around. What that is the cage of the front bearing on the bottom shaft. The cage that holds the ball bearings in place. So obviously it's not supposed to be floating around loose like that. So that leads me to believe there's a pretty good chance that that front bearing is out on the lower shaft. And that would make sense as to why it's noisy in third and fourth gear. This is the front one it's in fourth gear now, and that's third gear. So these two would be closest to the to that bearing, the two gears. So that would make sense as to why it's a little bit noisy. So I'll have to have a conversation with the owner. In order to fix that, I'll have to split the tractor right here, which is not a big deal. It's just 4 bolts and the 4 more bolts on the coupler there. So yeah, all in all, could be worse. I mean, the gears are worn and they're kind of pitted. If someone was going to hook onto a plow and plow like 20 acres every year, or rake 70 or 80 acres of hay, I'd be concerned. But I don't think that's what this tractor gets used for. So we'll see what direction the owner wants to go, and then we'll take care of that. All right. Fast forward 5 months since the last Farmall C video. Yes, embarrassingly, the C has been sitting in here for 5 months while I have been doing other things, doing crops, working on my own stuff. So yeah, I'm kind of embarrassed about that. It's a good thing the owner is is patient. This is why I don't generally work on other people's things anymore. Sometimes the project gets kind of shuffled aside while I do other things. But anyway, it's been a rainy day here today, so I have actually started working on this thing again. The top cover here, 3 of these bolts I was able to heat and get out with the vice grips. The one I did end up drilling out and retapping. The holes in front there, that one I ended up putting a helicoil in. The other ones I was able to get out. So I do need to pick up a rattle can of International Red paint because the paint got kind of mucked up there where I was heating on this. And I don't have it split yet. That's the next thing on the agenda, but I've got other things I can do. The little stand here that sits right there, I got that off, and as you can see, when I was unbolting this, the top of the bolts were rusted off. So, and this thing is you can probably get a good look at it in here. It's basically all you can see it's all rusted out. I need to cut this piece out and weld a new piece into this that bolts onto the top cover there and holds up the steering wheel and all the other controls. So that's what I'm doing today. So hopefully we get some more rainy weather. I've got probably a couple more weeks before the corn harvest starts, so maybe I can get this thing together again. So I'm about ready to harvest corn, so I'm feeling inspired to work on this C again. So hopefully we'll be able to get some more done on that. All right, got the old crappy piece cut out. Got my new bottom here fabricated. This is a little bit heavier than the other one. I think the other one looks like it's maybe 3/8, or excuse me, maybe an 1/8. This I think is 3/16. So I get this welded in place, and it should be pretty darn sturdy. First thing I'll need to I'll make a template from the top cover, and get my holes drilled in there where they need to be before I weld it in. So, well, that's probably about all. I'll finish that up today, and I will post again when I get the tractor split. Hopefully that will be in a matter of days and not months. So until then, have a good day.